Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi. I post true crime content like this all the time. So if that's something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button, give it a like, put your post notifications on so you know every time I upload a brand new video. So today we're going to be talking about the Granny Ripper case. The Granny Ripper was an elderly lady from Russia who killed her roommate, and this case is not as it seems because she could possibly have many more victims. If that sounds like something you're interested in, let's get into today's case. Tamara Samsonova was born on the 5th of February 1947. She grew up in the town of Azur. Again, I'll put it on the screen like every other video because this is one of my videos and I can barely speak English sometimes, so trying to pronounce Russian things is going to be a bit difficult. She was born in Azur. This town is part of the Krasnoyarsk Krai, which is the largest krai in Russia. Tamara was given a few nicknames. One was Baba Yaga, which refers to Slavic folklore and means evil old witch. She was also given the nickname the Granny Ripper, which is also a reference to the British serial killer Jack the Ripper. These nicknames are pretty brutal because when you look at her, she just seems like a sweet little old lady who couldn't hurt a fly. Tamara graduated from Moscow State Linguistic University and then moved to St. Petersburg, where she met her husband Alexei. Alexei worked at a car repair shop and Tamara worked at a travel agency and then worked at a really famous hotel in Europe called the Grand Hotel, and that really lives up to its name. Tamara and her husband, Alexei, moved into an apartment together on Dimitrova Street. Fast forward to the year 2000, which is 30 years ahead of the timeline. Alexei and Tamara were still living in the same apartment building, which means that Alexei and Tamara had been together for over 30 years. One day in 2000, the St. Petersburg police were called to the Dimitrova apartments as Alexei had been reported missing. When the police arrive, they find that Tamara was continuing to live in the apartment alone, and she told the police that Alexei had left her and ran off with another woman. She had no evidence to back this up, but the police believed her. They had no reason not to believe her. Here they had this woman who was heartbroken that her lover of 30 years had left her for another woman. By the middle of 2001, Alexei had still not been found. No one had heard from him, and it has been over a year since his disappearance. Tamara was starting to feel lonely. Her husband of 30 years had left her, and she'd had someone to live with for the last 30 years, so she was just feeling lonely. So she decides to get a roommate. A man named Vladimir moves in with Tamara, but ends up moving out very quickly because they had a falling out, and then living together just didn't work out. This would end up happening several times. She would find a new roommate, they would move in, then a falling out would happen, and then they would move out. Neighbours said that they would hear screaming, swearing, banging, so clearly she was a great person to live with. The names and orders of Tamara's roommates are unknown, however, they tend to be a man who was younger than her, and she was around 60 at this time. However, in 2003, a man named Sergei Batanyan moved in. A falling out happened and he moved out like all the others. This move was pretty abrupt. He was gone very quickly and everyone assumed that he had just packed up and moved to another town. As of 2015, Tamara is 68 years old. She's still living alone in her apartment and she's enjoying her retirement. Her apartment needed some repairs and renovations, which required her to move out for a short amount of time. One of her friends was called and they helped Tamara to move out and in with a woman who was named Valentina Ulanova. Valentina was 79, so older than Tamara. She also lived on the same street as Tamara, which made it a perfect place for her to move into while her apartment was going through repairs. As payment for living with Valentina, Tamara would provide assistance around the house, which sounds like a great deal in my opinion. She's just letting her live in her house for free, and all she has to do is housework. That's a great deal. A few months passed and Tamara and Valentina were still continuing to live together. The renovations are still going on at Tamara's house, so it's whatever. But Tamara was very happy with her living arrangements and wanted to live with Valentina forever. I'm sure you can imagine, because of Tamara's past with roommates, she was a horrible person to live with. She refused to leave and Valentina was just not happy with having to live with Tamara. They would argue a lot, almost every single day. In July, they had a massive argument over whose turn it was to do the washing up, which I can imagine is a very common argument that roommates have. I don't know. Tamara was very upset and angry about this argument. She ends up going to the nearby town of Pushkin on the 23rd of July. She goes into the pharmacy and convinces the pharmacist to sell her phenazepam prescription. This is a Russian-made pill which is a medication for schizophrenia, and in larger doses it is a muscle relaxant, but it can also cause overdoses. Anyways, this pharmacist sells the drug to Tamara, and on her way home she goes to a shop and buys Valentina an Olivia salad, which was one of her favourite meals. If you don't know what an Olivia salad is, it's kind of like a potato salad. Tamara says she crushed 50 of these phenazepam pills and put them into the salad, which in my opinion, I think that she might be exaggerating that amount, because surely Valentina would be able to taste it if there was 50 pills in the salad. Tamara gives the salad to Valentina for dinner, then Tamara goes to bed. At around 2 a.m. she wakes up and then finds Valentina unconscious on the kitchen floor. After finding Valentina unconscious on the kitchen floor, Tamara begins to dismember the body with a hacksaw. She even managed to cut the torso in half. She used kitchen knives to cut more delicate areas, then would throw the body parts into different plastic bags. What makes this worse is that later on during the autopsy on Valentina's body, it was found that she was still alive when this happened. She was unconscious, but she was still breathing. Valentina had allowed this woman to come into her apartment, live there rent-free, and all she asked for was assistance around the house, and she was repaid by being murdered. That shows how great of a roommate Tamara is, doesn't it? There is CCTV footage of Tamara carrying these plastic bags down the stairs and placing them outside, where she would dispose of them in a pond which was behind the apartment complex. You can also see Tamara carrying a cooking pot down the stairs. In this pot was the head and the fingers of Valentina, which she had put on the stove to boil. She was going to dispose of the head and the fingers in the pond too. However, There are reports which contradict this. Some sources say that they ended up in some communal rubbish bins rather than the pond. I'm not too sure though. So mind you, Tamara is reaching the age of 70 at this point. This is a lot of heavy lifting for a 70-year-old to be doing. And this CCTV footage is strange because it looks like the sweet old lady is carrying out her rubbish, but then it later comes out that these bags were full of human body parts. On the 27th of July, a couple who were neighbours of Tamara and Valentina were walking their dog and their dog was acting strangely. This dog became obsessed with the pond and which was behind the apartments. The couple went to investigate what their dog was so fixated on and to see why their dog was acting so strangely. They ended up finding human remains which had been wrapped in a shower curtain. They called the police, who began their investigation. The police started by interviewing neighbours and doing a head count to figure out who had been missing. Because Tamara had boiled the hands and head of Valentina, her body could not be identified. She was in the clear because they had no reason to suspect the 70-year-old lady. This was until a neighbour came forward saying that they had seen Tamara taking out plastic bags in the early hours of the morning. The police had also figured out that it was Valentina that was missing. Neighbours had said that no one had seen her for several days. So the police visit the house of Tamara and Valentina. And obviously Tamara is now living there alone. They question her and ask if they can have a look around. Tamara gladly lets the police search around her house, and they find blood splatter in the kitchen and the bathroom and notice that the shower curtain is missing. But the police didn't even need this evidence because Tamara made a full confession. She told police that Valentina had insulted her and that she had no other option but to kill her. The police had an admission of guilt from Tamara, but this was the only first layer being peeled away of this case. Tamara Samsonova was arrested, and during this, she was super calm and relaxed. She showed no signs of anxiety or stress, just was chilled. Tamara's first hearing was held on the 29th of July, 2 days after the remains were found. In this hearing, she confessed to the killing again, and then expressed relief that the argument was resolved. I don't know how the argument's resolved when you killed her. You just took her life. That's not really resolving the argument. She was video blowing kisses to photographers, and she said, quote, "This is such a disgrace for me. All the city will know." So she seemed more upset that the fact that people in town would be talking about her rather than the fact that she took the life of a woman who was so kind to her and let her live in her house for free. Anyway, in this hearing she basically confessed to killing several more people. She said, quote, "I was getting ready for this court action for dozens of years. It was all done deliberately. There is no way to live with this. This last murder, I closed the chapter." The judge asked her what she believed was a suitable punishment for her crimes, and she said, quote, "You decide, Your Honour. After all, I am guilty, and I deserve a punishment." She was held while the investigation into Valentina's murder and apparently now these other murders, which she confessed to. Well, she kind of confessed to. After the hearing, she was taken to Valentina's house. She took the police through everything that had happened that night. She told them she boiled the fingers and head to hide the identity of Valentina, and the idea of cannibalism then came to light as well. She did explain away the boiling, the head and the fingers as being able to conceal the identity of Valentina. However, all of her organs were missing and nowhere to be found. Tamara was taken back and held in custody, pending further investigation. This is when a diary, which was very detailed, was found. In this diary, it had basic information in it. The content of this diary was written in 3 different languages: Russian, English and German. Maybe she thought that one day she was going to be caught for her crimes and wanted as many people as she could to be able to understand it. After her basic information was written, there was 10 very detailed accounts of murders she had committed over the previous 20 years. So it becomes very clear that Valentina Ulanova was not the first murder victim of Tamara Samsonova. It appears that Valentina was her last victim. So after the diary was found, police had a lot of investigating to do. After the discovery of this diary, the case really spread fast in the media. People were shocked about how this sweet old lady was a killer. So the media really latched onto this case. This is how she gained the nickname, the Granny Ripper. Police continued investigations. They further questioned Tamara and she verified that she had committed 13 murders in the last 20 years. Now, it was hard for police to verify and identify these murders because of the ages of the cases, and due to the fact that Tamara would choose victims that lived outside of the town. There would be no one to report them missing because no one in the town would know who they were, and they'd just be unable to link them back to Tamara. Remember earlier how we talked about Sergei Patanyan, who lived with Tamara in 2003 and had moved from outside of town? He abruptly moved out and was not seen again. I'm sure you can see where this is going. He did not abruptly move out. Sergei and Tamara got into an argument, and on the 6th of December 2003, Tamara poisoned him similarly to Valentina. She then dismembered and disposed of the body. His torso was actually found by the police but was unidentifiable, so the case could not be solved. Remember her husband Alexei, who she claimed that after 30 years of marriage, he left her to be with another woman. Well, Tamara never admitted to murdering him, but the police did say they believe she did kill him. So I'm not sure if there's anything in the diary pointing to the fact that she did kill him, because this diary has never been shown to the public. But if the police believe she killed him, then there might be something in that diary alluding to that. You might also think that she murdered her first roommate, Vladimir. However, she actually didn't. The police found that right after he had moved out, he had been admitted to the hospital. He had symptoms of poisoning but actually survived. So it appears that she tried to kill him, but fortunately he survived. Her diary talked about how she'd murdered another man called Vladimir. She says that she cut his body up with a knife in the bathroom and then put the parts into plastic bags and then disposed of them over the Franzinsky district. So she did murder a guy named Vladimir, just not the one that was her roommate, even though she tried to kill him but was unsuccessful. She honestly seemed to have her MO down, because she got away with it for over 2 decades, so she must have been pretty good at it. Now, the motive for the killings here is very unclear. Obviously she wanted to kill Valentina because she wanted to live with her and then they had an argument. However, the motive for all the other murders just wasn't there, because it seemed like she was killing all these random men and she really had no reason to. These men were out of town, and she had no problem with them because she'd never even met them before, so she can't have had a problem. In psychological evaluations, it was found that she was suffering from some mental health conditions. She said, quote, "I'm haunted by a maniac upstairs who forced me to kill." It's believed that she may suffer from some sort of schizophrenia, and that is the reason she killed. It also turns out that she never had or needed any renovations on her apartment, and she only moved to escape the voices that were inside of her head. She read black magic books, so the police believe that some of these killings were part of a ritual. However, there is no evidence to support this. Earlier on, I spoke about the possibility of cannibalism. In her diary, she spoke about her diet, which consisted of lungs, legs, and heads, and then she would just get rid of the rest of the body. Valentina's lungs and other organs were never found, so you can take that as you will. A neighbour named Marina Kravenko said that Tamara was obsessed with the case of Andrei Chikatilo, who was known as the Butcher of Rostov. He raped and murdered his victims and then ate parts of their bodies. Tamara was even compared to him and was known as the female version of him by the media. At the end of this investigation, Tamara is suspected to be linked to 21 murders. The police were able to link her diary entries to different bodies that had been found in the St. Petersburg area. Overall, she admitted to 13 murders, but the police suspected her of 21. So, who knows how many she actually carried out. She could have even done more than the suspected 21. Evidence only allowed her to be charged with 2 murders though, so at trial she was going to be trialed for 2 murders. However, this trial would never happen as she was deemed unfit to stand trial. Instead, she was sentenced to spend the rest of her life at Kazan Psychiatric Hospital, where she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Honestly, it's kind of sad that none of the victims or their families will get any justice, because obviously she could have been like a serial killer, we don't know, but she's just gonna get, obviously she needs mental help, but none of the families are gonna get justice because she's not like really rotting away in prison or anything. But let me know down below what you think of this case. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe. And comment down below. Yeah, I just said that. You can stream my podcast on Spotify. If you want to subscribe, my face is on the screen. There's a playlist on the screen now where you can watch more videos. This is going to be my last video of 2022, so I will see you in my next video in January. Bye!